All right, so we've finished the LaRouchePAC Special Report, NAWAPA 21. And in this report, you're going to find a solution to the economic crisis. You're going to find why we need to build this plan right away, underscoring the exacerbated crisis in the Southwest, where if we don't build a project like this, we're going to be talking about moving a great deal of our population out of a great deal of our service area of our country. And we're going to be talking about losing a great deal of our food production over the next generation. Now, some people have that plan, and mainly those who are behind our current President Barack Obama, and the push which the global monetary empire behind him has, which is to reduce the world's population and to reduce commensurately the United States' ability to produce that food. Now, that's been seen in the recent period with the crises and storms and floods and droughts, an overwhelming crisis unable to be handled by our United States and our infrastructure due to the last 30 years. This plan addresses this crisis, and it also addresses the weakness of the government to be able to enact a plan like this by presenting once again what the powers of the United States Congress and executive are, what the powers of the government are to initiate a plan like this. Now, this NAWAPA 21 report you're going to find is going to be in an in-depth study on a number of areas that you may have been seeing on this website over the course of the last year and a half, especially for the NAWAPA project itself, but also the restoration of the U.S. credit system, Glass-Steagall, the national banking, which you've been hearing Lyndon LaRouche discussing as the twofold campaign of any qualified candidate for office, the president or Congress. You're going to find in the back of this a complete demonstration of Glass-Steagall and the credit system intertwined as one system. Essentially, why Glass-Steagall fits into the necessary reestablishment of the credit system. The report's broken into a number of sections. We start out laying out why this is the kind of plan which a patriot right now who's seeing the discussion all over the news on the seeming recovery in the short term just finally happening, or the lack of enough cutting by the president, is seeing that discussion and realizing it's the longer term cycles of our infrastructure that are really the problem here. And everybody's discussing about taking care of those longer term cycles of collapsing infrastructure on the side, but has no clear understanding of how they would actually do it and the kind of plan that would encompass all of them. Now, this plan does that. And it's also based not on just as something that can restore our infrastructure and productivity and industry and put as many unemployed to work that could be employed based on their skill. Mainly 6-7 million. We'll have to do an updated estimate of what this original plan would do. But also it's based on the legacy of the United States. It's based on the kind of things that we've done that have shown our power as a nation to unify the United States and have shown what a government can do when society is organized around scientific progress and the government is able to support that progress within the constitutional powers that have been provided by the United States. So we start this off with a demonstration of that principle, and then a demonstration that NAWAPA, as proposed in 1964, was integrated into this history of the United States. And John F. Kennedy, which this special report is dedicated to, was in line with doing those kind of great acts, and in fact, much more integrated into the specific project NAWAPA in his intent and in his recognition of what needed to be done than most people would recognize. Now, after that, we get into the different elements of this program, the necessity and how it's going to get done, in the resources required, in all of the kinds of jobs that are going to be needed, step by step. Each phase, the general organization phase, where we set up the administration, where we set up just the research, design, field work, the pre-construction phase, what we're going to be building as far as material production, cement factories, and then as far as machine production. All of the kinds of machinery that are going to be involved in setting up the system components of the plan, in depth as you're going to find. So we outline all of that, everything that this plan would mean as far as people actively building something for the next generation. And it's in depth as you're going to find, but we want to do more. And we're calling on you to update this with your expertise and with bringing in other people, the unions and other government layers that can do this kind of analysis in depth, as Harry Hopkins did in the Roosevelt administration. And in this section, we lay out all of the, you could say, data that's going to be necessary to do that, because we've got the calculations that we've been doing with our research team and associates of all of the tonnage, million cubic yards, millions of earth moved, and a million cubic yards of concrete and tons of steel as a preliminary analysis. A full analysis needs to be done, but what we have laid out as the quality, the layers and categories of employment and skill and machinery production needs in relation to those quantities, someone can do a much more in-depth analysis, and we're calling on you to make that much more clear and defined. Again, it's preliminary analysis. We're moving for a second edition of this report, but you'll see here that this alone is going to be capable of bringing together all of the different layers of society that don't see themselves as Republican, Democrat, anything like this. They see themselves as patriots in the national interest. The final section of this report, you're going to find, as I mentioned at the beginning, two key principles that we've been discussing on this website. The Glass-Steagall Act, which really means an assessment of our valid debts and commitments that the United States as a nation sees itself as responsible for. With the reinstatement of Glass-Steagall, we'll be moving our commitment from a vast amount of money market, AIG-style speculative programs that the Treasury and the Fed are sitting there committed to as a huge overhang sitting on our shoulders, and a huge mishap in priority. The priority instead is going to be shifted by taking back the United States Treasury as sovereign over our finances to then set up a credit institution. And in this section, we outline the history of the United States as always depending on these key principles: sovereignty of the Treasury and a fund that we can use as a lending mechanism toward the future, in such a way that what is actually circulating as currency is the future value of the intention or promise of government, which is the public debt. And that the creation of the public debt as the circulating resource of the future, as value in the present, is what Alexander Hamilton demonstrated and is detailed in depth there for anyone who seeks to resume this act of government. So the relation between this reassessment of debts and the setting up of a credit fund, as all of our great administrations had done, Washington with Hamilton, John Quincy Adams, restoration of that system, Abraham Lincoln, once again restoring and reviving that system in the middle of a crisis, which required the use of the greenback. But it was always this credit system with a national bank, the national banking system as the resource of credit in which the currency that was in circulation was a reflection of the future, not the present, as these under 1% crazy Federal Reserve bond sales have been doing now, which it's no longer even worthwhile to invest in U.S. bonds because it doesn't represent any future intent, needless to say, of everything else it's connected to. Those administrations have always done this, leading to the most recent, which is Franklin Roosevelt setting up his own makeshift national bank credit funds, which are reviewed in this section also. And finally, John F. Kennedy. And again, if you look at the beginning of this report, you're going to see in the section History of NAWAPA a legacy which you may have not realized is your own, so recent to the United States. But it's there for you to rediscover. So with this report, NAWAPA 21, we're looking at all patriots of all layers of how this report is related to, all the different layers of the economy, scientists, and interests of which this is related to mobilize around this plan as the plan which anybody running for Congress, anybody running for the presidency of the United States moves to come around this plan and make this the handbook for patriots, both in government and outside, to build a movement even at this late date that can get us a president in a number of months capable of acting in the national interest. And so I'm calling on everybody watching this to do your 5,000 LPAC. And if we can have enough people who are acting, doing their 5,000 LPAC and acting with this report, going out and making this organization that we're talking about here right up in the front of this report, as you'll find, we can accomplish this.